All right, absolutely. Well, first things first, thank you for inviting me over. Well, thank you for making the opportunity available for me to speak. I've been following you for quite some time, and I personally think that you're doing a great job by giving back to our program. Okay, so I do appreciate it. All right. Today's focus for us is on running back 101, run game, pass protection, and hot routes. Let's begin. So this is what the overview is going to look like today. I'm first going to lead off by briefly touching on the many alignments, in an offense from shotgun to under center to pistol. And after that, we're going to shift to run game. Okay. I'm not going to really dive into, the weeds with the blocking responsibilities of the offensive line. I will touch on them momentarily, but my focus will be on the discipline that tracks and just coaching the running back position. Okay. Then after that, we're going to shift to running back pass protection, where we'll touch on Bob versus combo and slide. And then lastly, we'll close everything out by touching on the running back hot routes, tips, and then a quick recap. Okay. So first, let's talk about alignments. Okay. So the first alignment we'll touch bases on is gun. In the football world, we call it sidecar. Whichever way whichever language you prefer to use, that's perfectly fine. But for shotgun alignment, typically, we ask our backs to line up 5 yards behind the guard, place our guard, depending on the play. But usually, the toes of the running back is on the heels of the quarterback. Okay, for a variety of different reasons. Okay. There's passing game responsibility, there's run game responsibilities, then there's blocking responsibilities as well. Stances range from 2-point stance to the 3-point stance. Typically, the heavier fullback athletes, they line up in 3-point stance to improve their get off. And the lighter backs, that's a little bit quicker, they typically line up in 2-back. Just a tip for this alignment on Chief for success. And what do I mean by that is this. Some backs are faster than others. So if you feel that your running back isn't hitting the hole the way he needs to hit it based off of, his responsibility, move him up. Okay. But if you feel like he's hitting the hole a little bit too quickly, then move him back. Okay. But that's what I mean by just based off of athleticism or runner. Okay. The second alignment that we'll touch on is under center. I know that there's a lot of programs that's getting away from under center football. I personally think that it adds value to an offense, but typically, tailbacks are about 7 yards behind the fullback or the quarterback, depending on the alignment or the overall set. Their stance can range between 2-point and 3-point, and then like the shotgun alignment, Chief for success. Okay. Again, there's some coaches that prefer their running backs to be at 8 yards deep. And then there's some that prefer their backs to be at about 6 yards. Okay. But a perfect median between both is 7 yards. Okay. All right. The third alignment that I'll touch on today is pistol. Okay. So pistol alignment, quarterbacks, from what I'm seeing, are usually at 4 yards, but the perfect medium, in my opinion, is 5 yards. Behind the quarterback is the running back. The running back is about 3 yards behind the quarterback, so that puts him about at 8. But you can bump him up to 7 yards as well, depending on the athleticism and the run of the running back. 3-point stance or 2-point stance, either way, it just boils down to comfort and just responsibility. Okay, so just like that, we just touched on the 3 different alignments, the 3 common alignments of running backs. We talked about shotgun, which is also known as sidecar, under center, which is usually I formation of some sort. And then we touched on pistol. Okay. So now we're going to shift from alignments to run game. Okay. The first focus is going to be on duo, followed by power O, counter, and mid zone. Okay. So duo. Okay. So duo, blocking responsibility is backside gap to front side gap. Some coaches, prefer inside zone. That's perfectly fine as well. But duo's backside gap to front side gap responsibility, as we see in this diagram. Okay. So we have the tackle. Since duo is being ran to the right hand side, this tackle doesn't have a 4 eye, so he's slamming back to the 5 technique. Okay. The guard in the center sees an opportunity to combo, so they're comboing up to the weak side linebacker. Okay. To the call side, okay, we also have another combo opportunity where the guards and the tackles are comboing up to the Mike backer. And then lastly, the tight end. Some coaches use a sniffer as well. His backside gap is the number one responsibility. So therefore he's caving down. Okay. But the path for the running back is this: press, play, side guard. Okay. I've been to a number of different clinics, and some coaches prefer that their tailback press the cheek of the center, which is perfectly fine. Whatever works for you, works for you. But in our world, we typically ask the running back to press the hip of the guard. Okay. It's also important that the running back hugs the double teams. Okay. Why? Because as a lineman, it helps the blocking responsibility and it helps the combo opportunity. Okay. Alignment or assignment, I'm sorry. We ask all backs to press the heels of the offensive lineman. The words that we use is slow too fast through A, B, C. What does that mean? Well, you either have A gap, you have B gap, or C gap, okay? A light power O, and we'll talk about that very soon. We ask all running backs to press the A gap first, okay? So that's duo. Run play number 2 is power O, okay? Blocker responsibility, typically backside tackle is cutting off the B gap, working the C. Some coaches have their backside tackle to play man on the pulling guard, okay? He's responsible for skip pulling and attacking the play side backer with the opportunity to potentially lob a defender that shows up, okay? The center is typically blocking back. The play side guard and the play side tackle is comboing back to the wheel backer, okay? Some coaches just say, hey, gap down backer, that's perfectly fine. And the end man on the line of scrimmage is responsible for kicking out the end man, okay? Path for the running back, press the play side guard like in duo, slow to, fast through, and hug the double team, okay? So just like duo, the language that we typically use is A gap to B gap to C gap, okay? Which again means if A gap is closed, check B gap. If B gap is closed, check the C gap, which usually means that some form of log is being blocked up. Okay, so the second run play is power. Okay, the third common run play that we see a lot of is counter. Okay, so counter is like power, but it's just in the opposite direction. Okay, so the blocking rules for the tackle and the guard is gap down backer. Okay, and whoever is pulling. Okay, that can be centers, that can be guard, and then sometimes the GT. All right, tackle. All right, but whoever's pulling first, they're responsible for trapping the first man that shows. Okay, the second puller, he's responsible for inserting to the play side backer. Okay, like in power, the second puller is responsible for reading the block of the trapper. Okay, so again, if the second puller sees an opportunity to insert for the play side backer, he takes it. Okay. But if the puller logs the end man on line of scrimmage, the second puller is responsible for working around it. Well, what does that mean to the running back? Well, it's simple. The running back must also be on the same page with the offensive lineman and the puller. Okay. The language that we always use is make them right. Okay. Hug a double team, press the heels of the offensive lineman, slow too fast through, A, B, C. Keep your shoulders vertical. Okay. And the last run play that we'll touch on is mid zone. Some coaches call it outside zone. Some coaches call it stretch. That's perfectly fine. Okay. But this play here, typically the offensive linemen are on the same level, keeping their shoulders squared and working up the field. Okay. Some coaches have the offensive lineman to rip and run, but the running back is responsible for using the same footwork. Okay. I will say that mid zone typically hits a little bit better from pistol or under center. Okay. But it is possible for you to run mid zone front shotgun as well. Okay. Just know that if you're running it from pistol or from under center, you're going to help your play side tackle out a lot. Okay. If you run it out of sidecar, which is gun, you're going to put a lot more strain on your play side tackle. Okay. But the path and the footwork, rocker step, some coaches call it a delayed step, then chase the play side tackle. Okay. Some coaches say, hey, chase the play side tight end or the imaginary tight end, whichever language you prefer to use with your backs, that's perfectly fine. Okay. The assignment, cut at the heels of the offensive lineman. BBB. Okay. B stands for bounce the play outside, or bang. Okay. Stick your toe on the ground and cut up field vertically, or bend the play all the way back. Okay. So a little quick acronym is BBB. That's bounce, bang, bend. Okay. All right. So with that being said, we're shifting from common run plays to the passing game. Okay. So during this section here, we're going to touch on big versus big on big or combo and slide protection. Okay. More now than ever before, running backs must not only be able to run between the tackles and on the edges, running backs must also be willing to pass protect and catch the football. Okay. In high school, more and more running backs are not being asked to pass protect. Okay. For any runner that dreams to someday play college football, I highly recommend that as coaches, we put our guys in position to show college coaches that they can indeed do it. Okay. So the first pass protection we have is big on big or combo. Okay. So big on big simply means that the big guys block the big guys. All right. Offensive linemen block guys that had their hands in the dirt. Okay. So that's typically offensive linemen versus defensive tackles, shades, defensive ends. Okay. There's pros and cons to it. The pro is, well, you keep big guys on big guys. But the downside is what typically happens is if you don't have the number system correct, whichever number system you run, you typically give up a lot of free runners, especially from linebackers. Okay. Combo means that half of the offensive lineman is going to latch on. Okay. But the other half is going to slide protect. Okay. The pro to this is that, full week, okay, is usually picked up. All right. But the downside is, again, if you're not on the same page with the running back, there's a little, there's quite a few run throughs. Okay. So long story less long, just to be on the same page, big on big or combo, whichever direction, you go with your offensive staff is perfectly fine there. Okay. Well, I say to say this, running back assignment. So it's very important that the running back is on the same page with the offensive lineman. Okay. So what needs to be clearly defined is bob or combo. Okay. Because the running back has to fit off of that. Okay. So in this diagram here, it's an example of combo. Okay. So from the center to the left guard to the tackle, these guys are sliding left. Okay. Well, since it's big on big to the front side of this play, that simply means that the running back is responsible for the play side backer and out. Okay. Block most dangerous. Okay. So when he's blocking, it is best that the running back meets the rush linebacker at the line of scrimmage. Okay. Because what you don't want to happen is you don't want leakage to rattle the quarterback and, throw him off his read. Okay. Protect inside out and fit thick. Okay. I do realize that some smaller running backs typically want to cut heavier linebackers, but in today's game with so many linebackers, playing basketball and track, right, and very athletic linebackers of today would jump over cutting running backs and really rattle your quarterback into progression. Okay, so that's what I mean by fit thick and protect inside out. Okay. This type of blocking is usually used with drop back passing attacks. So typically any route combination that exceeds 10 yards, between 5 to 10 yards and deeper, this type of protection is usually connected to it. Okay. So this is big on big or combo. And we talked about the block responsibility of the running back, which is to be on the same page with the offensive line. Okay. So the second protection that we'll touch on and why the running back fits to it is slide protection. Okay. So in this type of protection, offensive linemen are usually responsible for a gap. So in this diagram here, the offensive lineman is responsible to the left gap, which means that there's going to be a free rusher away from the slide. Okay. Where the running back fits into that gap. Okay. And the running back is responsible for attacking the edge gap, okay, and either fitting thick or cutting the gap with the outside shoulder, okay. You're not really worried about leakage here because usually this type of protection is directly connected to quick game. Okay, so here we're thinking, slants, hitches, outs, any route combination where the quarterback can just catch the ball and get rid of it from gun, or if he's under center, 3-step ball comes out. Okay, so the quarterback just needs a little bit of time, which is why slide protection is very, very effective in the passing game. Okay. All right, so the last component that we'll touch on today is pass game hots, where we'll talk about the details of the swing route, spot, the shoot, angle, and the seam. Okay, so the first hot route that we'll touch on is the flat route, okay, or the swing. Typically, we ask running backs to, focus really on width, okay? In this picture here, this back is in the shotgun formation. And when the ball is snapped, he is coached to run as wide as possible, okay? Be on the same page with the quarterback, okay? So pre-snap, if the running back is lined up, he's, scanning the field like the quarterback. If heat is in the kitchen, he knows that he must not only get to his landmark in a hurry, but he must also get his eyes around to prepare for a catch. Okay. 3-step versus 5-step. Well, usually if the running back is running a swing route to the short side of the field, we ask him to run 3 steps before he looks up. Okay. If the running back is running to the wide side of the field, you ask the running back to run 5 steps before turning unless it's hot. Okay. That's what that rule is, 5-step versus 3-step. Okay. The second hot route that's packaged to quick game is arrow. Okay. Some coaches coach the arrow to, as soon as the ball is snapped, the tailback is attacking the outside hip of the tackle and staying on that path for 5 yards. But some air raid coaches ask their running backs to run to the line of scrimmage, and then once they get there, to break it flat. Okay. Whichever method you prefer, just make sure that you're on the same page with your quarterback, okay? Because your quarterback really needs to know where his hot routes are, okay? So in this picture here, the tailback is attacking the outside hip of the tackle, and as soon as he gets to the tackle, he's running to the sideline, okay? That's what this diagram is, and this is the arrow route. Okay, the third hot route that we'll talk about is the spot route. This route here, the tailback is releasing the tailback is released on the outside hip of the tackle. He's releasing upfield for 5 yards, and then he is turning and sitting down in the grass. Okay. The note that I have here is best release. Some coaches prefer that their running backs on the check down. This is also called a check down. They prefer that their running back releases upfield, right? Avoid the lineman and just sit in the middle of the field. This path right here is low risk, high reward. But the ultimate goal is to best release and sit over the tackle and lock eyes with the quarterback. Okay? That's the spot route. Okay, the next route that we'll touch on is the angle. Okay, some coaches call it the Texas route. But on the angle route, okay, it has the same stem as the arrow route, where the running back is attacking the outside hip of the tackle or the imaginary tight end, and then he's breaking in at a 45-degree angle. Okay, you might see Christian McCaffrey. He runs this route a lot. Any dynamic back, that can also catch the ball. A lot of coaches live with this route right here. Okay, but the coaching point here is to run at the play side tackle, add some personality at the top of the route, and then break in at a 45-degree angle. Okay, the quarterbacks know that, hey, if this is a great answer versus inside blitz and backers. Okay, so quarterbacks just have to be on the same page with the running back here. Okay, and then if the quarterback throws the ball to the running back, make sure you catch the ball, drop, step, and get on the field. Okay, and the last hot route that we'll touch on is the seam. Okay, and on the seam route, the same path. It's the same path. It's the same stem as the angle route, same stem as the spot route, same stem as the angle. Okay. Some coaches, want to add this to a choice route, which is perfectly fine. But the running back knows that he must attack that same spot with hurry. Okay. And once he gets to the line of scrimmage, run up the field immediately. Okay. The ultimate goal is to work to the seam. But sometimes, if heat is in your face, the running back knows that he just needs to work a field, get his eyes around it. Usually the quarterback is going to throw the ball on the inside shoulder. Okay. If there's a defender on the inside hip, quarterback must be able to put the ball over the inside defender. But ultimately, the running back and the quarterback just has to be on the same page. Okay. And that is the same route. Okay. So the final section we're going to touch on is just a few helpful tips. And these tips are not only, applicable to our running back coaches, but also all coaches. Okay. So number one, plan out all drills. Okay. Don't wing it. Okay. If you're a running back coach, I highly recommend that you ask the offensive coordinator, hey, what do my backs need to know? And then once you learn that, plan your practice accordingly. Okay. The last thing you can ever, the worst thing you can ever do is just show up at practice and just throw drills together and expect your guys to respond to that. Okay. It really pays to be organized and to plan out your drills. Okay. Number two, all drills should have a focus. Okay. Always ask yourself, what do my guys need to be able to do? Okay. Do my guys need to be able to run inside? Do my guys need to be able to run outside? Do my guys have to be able to pass protect? Do my guys have to be able to run routes? Okay. Always have a focus connected to your routes, to your drills. Okay. Tip number three, study offensive blocking schemes. Hang out with the offensive line coach. Okay. In order for you to teach the scheme correctly, I personally think that you must understand the blocking responsibilities. Okay. Hang out with the offensive line sometimes. Okay. Go to their meetings, ask questions. Hey, if you're unsure, just ask questions. Okay. Just be on the same page with the offensive blocking schemes and the offensive line coaches. Okay. Tip number four, study wide receiver passing schemes. Hang out with the receivers and quarterbacks. Okay. I personally think that it's okay if, you push the running backs to run routes with the receivers. Okay. It's only going to help them out. Okay. I personally think that it's beneficial for the running backs to learn the route trees. Okay. Not just their routes, but, work beyond, just the common routes that running backs are being asked to run. Okay. And then hang out with the quarterback. Just be on the same page. The quarterback needs to be able to, believe what he see downfield. But if trouble's in the air, he has to be comfortable enough to check it down. Okay. A lot of times with 7-on-7 leads and all that good stuff, quarterbacks are usually throwing deep, not realizing that some of the best athletes on the team are running backs. Okay. They don't need a lot of space, just get them the ball and let them work. Okay. Tip number four, take pride in building young men for tomorrow. Okay. This is not just for running back coaches, but this is for all coaches. Okay. Never forget your why. Yes, we love coaching up football. We love talking schemes. We love drawing at plays. But ultimately, our number one goal is to build young men through this sport so that we can, help them be successful in the future. Okay. And then lastly, today, I just touched momentarily on just a few concepts and few ideas from the running back position. But I also have a book available as well, Running Back 101, where I deep dive into a little bit more information through Coach and Share. Okay. All right. So before we open it up for questions, if there's any questions, just a quick recap. So section number one, I touched on alignments, it's basic alignments. We touched on shotgun versus under center versus pistol. Okay. Benefits of all three. Well, the benefits of shotgun is that, hey, your running backs can run free, and it really helps the passing game. Okay. The downside is, it takes away from the downhill physicality sometimes. Okay. But that's a benefit from under center and pistol. All right. But the downside is, you might lose a little bit of something in the passing game. Okay? So I just touched on those alignments there. And then we shifted our attention to run game. Okay, we talked about duo, power, counter, and men zone. Okay, duo power. The run assignments are pretty much the same. I personally think that duo is just power without the puller. Some coaches might disagree, and that's perfectly fine. But duo is a gap play, power is a gap play, and counter is a gap play. Okay, all three plays are very, very similar, just coached up differently. And then mid zone is a true mid zone. Okay. The third section we touched on was running back pass protection. We briefly touched on Bob versus combo. Bob is big on big, and combo is man plus slide. And we touched on slide protection, which is used for quick game concepts. And then lastly, we touched on running back hot routes, where we touched on the swing route, just know when to run it 5 steps versus 3, the arrow route, the seam route, the angle route. Okay. And then lastly, we close it out with tips. Okay. So this right here is my contact information. My name is Brandon Simmons, and I coach at Southeast Raleigh High School. I'm the offensive coordinator. My contact information is here. You can either contact me on Twitter at Coach B Simmons or Coach_B Simmons, or through email bls0405@gmail.com. And the book that I touched on today was Running Back 101, which is available through Coach and Share.
Perfect, Coach. But I mean, I'll ask this because I think it's universal, the opinion. And I will say this because I've had Coach Laughlin on here before on a podcast, and he's now the running back coach at Ohio State. That I would argue at high school and college is probably the worst coach position in general. You typically don't put your best coach, offensive coach there. It really, depending on your scheme, it might be your third best, give or take. Where do you, besides just your book and on Coaching Share, what other resources do you think are a good tool? You hit on a lot of things there. And to be honest, I think running back path and aiming points are severely under-taught in most offenses in general. I think really probably the only ones that really harp on it really well are inside zone coaches. But gap schemes, I remember several years I've not heard about it. How do you, for resources and then kind of recommendations for teaching running back pass?
So you brought up a few great points. I personally think that, like you just said, the running back position is not coached with the same enthusiasm as other positions, because usually, at least in the high school ranks, coaches typically put their best athlete at running back and say, hey, figure it out. And it doesn't just start at high school, but it also starts in middle school and Pop Warner. Okay, usually you have all the kids to race. Whoever in the race, that's my running back. Okay. In recent years, you start to see a shift with the best athlete trying to play quarterback so that you can run your read game and all that good stuff. But usually, running backs are usually some of your best athletes. But the philosophy that you referred to, I've heard it before. Some coaches, some head coaches, not all, but some head coaches stick their weaker coach at running back. That sometimes harms the backfield. But I've also seen it where, the running back is elevated in the program and the head coaches believe firmly in putting their best coach at that position because they understand the importance of it. But as far as resources, I personally believe that it's important for you to visit clinics. Okay, I'll be the first one to tell you that this past offseason I've been very, very busy. I've been hanging out with a lot of different coaches up and down the East Coast, North Carolina, South Carolina, and everywhere in between. And it all starts with your identity. What do you want to be offensively? Do you want to be a gap team? Do you want to be a zone team? Okay. And if so, what is the entry points? Okay. For example, part of the reason why, I put an emphasis on running backs hitting the A gap, B gap, C gap was because that's the way I was coached when I was in college. Okay. My offensive line coach, at East Carolina, anytime that we bounced the play outside, he'll get mad at us. And at that time, I didn't really understand why, but he said he was explaining to us the importance of aim marks. So He told us, hey, this is where you need to run. Why? Because we need to help the offensive lineman to create movement. And if you cut back too soon, that's going to throw the blocking off. Okay. But to answer your question directly, I personally think that clinics are very, very essential. Hang out with the staff that you want to learn more from. Okay. And then ask all the coaches on your staff in the high school level to teach it that same way. Other resources, there's so much content out here. Clinics like this, Amazon, they have books. There's a whole lot of old manuals across the internet. Okay. The biggest misconceptions that all these ideas that we're using today are original. They're not. Okay. All you have to do is go back to the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, and you'll see for yourself that a lot of these schemes that we're running, we didn't create them. Okay. We're just adding a little sprinkle to it, right? But the origins of the systems are out there. Okay. It might be a little bit time consuming. Okay. Where you have to peel through old articles and old texts, but it is definitely worth it if you want to improve your game as a coach. Okay. So that's the short answer. Clinics, clinics, physical clinics, online clinics, Amazon, coach and share, word of mouth manuals to improve your game.
Okay. Well, coaches, we'll be back at 6:00 with Coach Lloyd talking sustaining a football program. 6:30 is Coach Vester with, I believe he's talking kickoff or kick return, one of the two. Coach Greg Gonzalez is going to be at 7. He's going to talk how he married kind of the slot tee and the flex bone, the flex tee. Coach Ruda is going to talk wing tee blocking at 7:30, and Coach Holzer is going to talk some run and shoot, practice and game planning at 8. So that link will pop up probably about 10, 15 minutes before. I'll open all that stuff up. Worst case 5. Like, share, subscribe, all that jazz, so people can find this clinic. I'll get it cut up over the next couple of days, and all individual clinics will be posted separately. But this full clinic, I think it's at 2 hours and 45 minutes.